Thanks, Kevin. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining this session. As Kevin said, the title is Challenges and Opportunities in Working with, it says versus for, but I would say not for, not like just for or not on communities of learners and audiences. And I want to thank the set of presenters that are here today for being willing to be vulnerable and inspirational as we explore these challenges and opportunities that you've experienced. And there's going to be a lot of overlap for folks in the room. So you're really getting us started on a conversation that's been going on for a while and has to continue moving forward. And we really have a lot to learn from you. So thank you, and a lot to learn together afterwards in breakouts. So I'll let each of the presenters and introduce themselves and their projects. But just some things that they'll be hitting on are topics that really echo what we heard this morning in the plenary. Topics of co-design, of reciprocity, of relationship building and centering relationships, and amplifying each other's strengths. And they're all particularly talking about working in communities of learners who have been historically marginalized by dominating cultures and historically under-respected, under-represented, under-centered. And so they will be talking about how they are adjusting those narratives. So I'll kick it up over to our first set. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Kevin, and everybody else who's making this PI meeting possible. My name is Robbie Callahan Schreiber. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm the Director of Museum Access and Equity at the Science Museum of Minnesota, and I'm here today with one of our community collaborators, Marika Pfefferkorn, and we're going to speak a bit more about a project that we worked on very recently, a rapid project called Advancing Conversations that Intersect STEM and Racial Justice. And very briefly, this was work that we completed in just the last year to work with 3 regional project groups of community members, specifically folks who identify as Black and Indigenous or people of color, folks who are doing racial justice work in their communities across Minnesota, to do work together to develop virtual STEM-informed activities to support people within their communities to better understand, process, or act upon the traumatic impacts of systemic racism in our communities. And Marika, if you want to share a bit of an introduction, and then we'll bounce back and forth with some of the things we reflected upon as we thought about this topic.
Hello, I am Marika Pfefferkorn, and I bring you greetings from Minnesota, and want to acknowledge that I am in the unceded territory of the Dakota and Anishinaabe peoples. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Twin Cities Innovation Alliance, and we really work to help folks co-design and community engage around information, data, and technology that is used that is to be used for public good. And it was exciting to be a part of this project for the last year and building our relationship with the Science Museum of Minnesota.
And I really think, something that's already been said multiple times and that we really hit on as we reflected on what to share is like the power of recognizing and centering relationships in this work, and recognizing that through something like an NSF funding, that's funding to do a project in a certain window of time, but we have relationships that we have to bring to bear before the period of funding occurs. We deepen relationships through projects and funding, and we have a stated commitment as we began the work together a little over a year ago to continue to be working together. And I was talking with Marika, thinking about it a bit as an iceberg of that the piece of the work that we see from an NSF project standpoint is what's above the water, but we have so much more relationship there. And that, Marika and I had gotten connected several years ago to be doing work on refreshing our Race Are We So Different exhibit. And that relationship came through a different colleague that I'd been working with who was in a cohort that Marika led. And so I think it's just always important to trace the tendrils of these relationships and say that, as we move forward, we're now committed to continuing to engage and build upon the work that we that we started several years ago and that we were able to deepen with this NSF project. Curious to hear you share a bit more about what centering the relationships meant to you in the work, Marika.
Thanks, Robbie. So for us, we were excited. We're a small organization. We have limited capacity. But when the Science Museum approached us with the opportunity for this project, we also understood other community members would be there that we really respected. We had to spend some time, even though many of us had some existing relationships, we needed to spend time building community. A lesson learned this is a lesson we know, is that it is time intensive to build both trust with institutions and build relationships and bridge relationships in community organizations. As you know, you often find folks that are operating off of a scarcity model and maybe competing with each other. So we had to get through that without having a clear vision of exactly what the other side of this project would look like. So it was central to build trust. We had good relationships with the staff, and that helped us bridge the relationship with the Science Museum. I think going into this as a community, there was a lot of anxiety about what the expectations were. And again, this was supposed to be left up to us to work out and figure out. And this was such a unique perspective to be coming at us from. And so really, no, tell us what you want us to do. And so it also took some time to persuade the community, no, really, we're looking for your direct impact and feedback. And so it took us some time to get there. And so by the end of the project, we're actually rushing through the science piece of it, because I don't know in the trajectory of the planning how much time they anticipated, but we always underestimate the time it takes to build the relationship to work successfully together. But what is really critical, I want to say about the community building that we did, is that there was no guarantee on the other side of this project that anything else would exist. And yet by taking the time to build community, we worked through the process together. We are now committed to going forward with this project with each other, because we learned and respected how to work with each other. We learned how to navigate accountability. And so it's like, we are now ready to go deeper into this work as a collective, or I should say ecosystem of system and community members. You're on mute, Robbie.
With that, we'll pass to the next group and look forward to the small group conversations.
And I'm jumping right in. So my name is Sarah May. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior research and evaluation associate at the Museum of Science, Boston. And I'll also let my partner Vedika give a quick introduction, and then I'll give a little overview of the project.
Hi, I'm Vedika. I'm a youth advisor for the Museum of Science, and specifically for the Appraise project. And I'm Sarah's partner for this presentation.
Awesome, thank you. And I will just share a couple quick slides to give an overview of this work. So there's a longer title, but we refer to this as the Appraise project. It is a pilot and feasibility project in collaboration between the Museum of Science and a nonprofit called Ed Together that does a lot of work on research and development in learning environments, and with a particular focus and expertise in emotion and how emotion relates to learning. So taking these two lenses together, the sort of informal science learning and emotional engagement, we've come together to try to explore a few different questions. So what does it feel like to belong or be excluded? And particularly through that lens of the emotional aspects of belonging and exclusion. What aspects of exhibit design in particular contribute to these feelings, and how do aspects of identity also influence these feelings? So this work is all moving towards developing and validating a research protocol, exploring relationships among exhibit design, intersectional identities, appraisals, so the feelings we get when we're making decisions and engaging in the world, and engagement. And we are particularly, the project set out to work kind of for youth ages 10 to 17. And as the world has changed, we've actually been given opportunities to reflect a little bit on this model of just working for youth. And we have a few different ways that we've been doing that. So our work did set out to have a youth advisor model where we would have, as Vedika sort of mentioned, being a youth advisor, kind of small points where we would get input from youth on the research and that we were conducting. But we've been able to kind of really more fully flesh out that youth advisor role and incorporate youth interns as researchers. So Vedika actually started as an intern for the project, conducting research with us, doing analysis, and kind of reflecting and making meaning of the data that we've collected in our very first mini study that we conducted over the summer. And we've been gathering input from our youth participants just on the process so that we can make sure that the protocols that we're developing really work for them. And so as we've kind of gone through this work of trying to bring in youth perspective and build youth roles in this work, we've sort of both at kind of that high planning level have been learning a lot about how to implement work like that, but also just in the sort of course of doing the research, we've been able to get a lot of really great insights from our youth advisors and our youth interns. So I'm then going to stop sharing and just come back to the discussion and actually bounce it back over to Vedika, because she's been reflecting a lot on sort of her role as both a researcher and from the perspective of being a youth herself. And so I'm wondering, Vedika, if you can share with us just some of the reflections you've had on kind of navigating those roles and just being a researcher and what you've kind of learned through the process.
Yeah, so first of all, I learned how to like apply different parts of my identity to analyzing like the data and the results and interacting with our participants, because I was like a member of the community, so like a member of the youth, so I was kind of on the participants side, but I also had the lens of a researcher. So it was kind of balancing a bit of both and seeing how to interact with them and like get them to a safe spot or make them feel safe enough for them to like share things about their identity, about the data, or like to help further our study. So it was really important to make them feel safe enough to share stuff about their identity that they might not otherwise share. But it was also kind of hard to balance that with being a researcher and looking at like their interview very objectively and not being biased in that way. And it was another part of like the struggles about working with the community was that although I am part of although I am a youth and I do have that lens, all of the participants came from such different backgrounds that it was sometimes hard to connect with them because like age isn't the only part of your identity, and there's so many other factors that shape how you view science. So it was sometimes hard to interpret what they said because of like my own perspective. So I kind of had to work a bit on that. But overall, it was definitely very eye-opening, and I learned a lot, especially about myself and about how others view science. So.
Awesome, thank you. And so, yeah, looking forward to jumping into small group discussion in a bit.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to briefly share our NSF project team's experience in collaborating with community partners. I'm Hyunjin Seo, professor of digital media at University of Kansas and also director of KU Center for Digital Inclusion. Today, I'm joined by Carol Livers, who is one of our community partner representatives, and Jody Witt, our peer mentor. So I will ask them to briefly introduce themselves before going into some of the key aspects we want to discuss. Carol? Carol, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I appreciate being involved and being invited. My name is Carol Levis. I'm the Director of Libraries in Kansas City, Kansas. I oversee 5 public libraries, 3 mobile libraries, and 40 school libraries. So I wear 2 different hats, and I kind of report to 2 different boards because of the way the state is made up. Do you want me to go into?
No, let's do it after. Yeah, a little bit overview. Thank you, Jody.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today too. It is an honor to be amongst you people. I'm just excited to share my experience with the program, the KU Technology Education Program. It has been life-changing for me. Very excited to share.
Great, thank you. So I want to, this is a collaborative project, and we have a team from University of Kansas and University of Missouri, Kansas City. And I want to very briefly go over some of the experiences, and then we'll hear from Carol and Jody what their thoughts are in terms of the collaborating with academia and other partners. So our NSF team is composed of 15 members from 2 different universities, representing 6 different disciplines, including computer science, education, digital media, communication, public health, and women and gender studies. And our program cannot exist without our wonderful community partners. And we have 16 community partners that in Kansas and Missouri that work closely with our team. And the partners include public libraries, departments of corrections, nonprofit organizations supporting women's reentry. Our project is really to provide evidence-based technology education to women transitioning from incarceration. And our project goal primarily is to really implement scalable and sustainable ways of supporting women leaving jail or prison in terms of their technology learning, that are helpful for their employment opportunities. And community partnerships are essential in these areas, and we conduct community-based research and empirical research, including interviews, survey, having pre and post comparison groups and intervention and control groups, and then using that empirical data to build evidence-based technology education. And in all these activities, at the center of our activities is really engaging with communities and working with community partners in not only conducting research, but also designing our program. Throughout our program, we work very closely with community partners and participants as well to gain insights from them in developing collaborative education modules for women transitioning from incarceration. Before COVID-19, we offered our program at public libraries, but due to COVID-19, we moved all our content online, and we utilize our learning management system to offer the online education opportunities. And finally, I want to very briefly share some of the lessons learned from our community partnership before inviting Carol to share her perspective as a community partner. And most of all, it is important to build partnerships based on empathetic understanding and trust. And I think this is very essential for the successes that we have so far. In conducting, community-based research, particularly, we really, I think our team tried, we have passion and we have great interest in understanding challenges of the community that we work with, and really working with them in addressing some of the challenges that we have identified. And also, as I noted earlier, because we conduct thorough empirical research in multiple stages with multiple comparison groups, we are better able to identify and understand the participants' interests and needs. And as you can hear from Jody later, that participants are part of designing the education content. We constantly communicate with them to adjust the content to meet their interests and needs. And then also, I think that we, as you saw, we have many community partners. So setting clear goals and establishing effective communication channels has been really important, again, because we work with partners in different sectors and so on. So this multi-layer communication channels has been really important in kind of sustaining a successful academic community partnerships. And I hope that there will be an opportunity to elaborate on some of them, but in the interest of time, now I want to invite Carol to share her insight as community partner on this project. Carol?
Thank you, appreciate it. We have had a long-standing relationship with KU, the University of Kansas, and it's in my the time that I've been here over almost 12 years with different projects. The very first one I signed on with KU was the K-12 project, and that we found out that students, high school students, were unable to do thorough research, and they had some problems. So we gathered the K-12, that's all the schools, the community colleges, and of KU, to see how we can work together in order to get everybody on the same level, so that we can help the kids, so that by the time they get to KU, that they could at least do the research the way they have, instead of KU having to teach them. But nevertheless, just a little bit background of KU. So it was a given when KU approached us again to do this collaborative research of technology education for women in transition. And of course, as a public library, we serve a county of 169,000 and mostly adults. And the majority is obviously underserved, and that's where libraries usually come in. We always look for more and different avenues to get involved to collaborate with local entities in order to serve our communities better, because there's always a need. So with the Department of Corrections and the Women's Employment Network and many more. So we were excited when KU approached us with this endeavor. So it is easy for us, as we are doing some of the things that they would like to utilize. We have space, obviously, in our libraries, and KU needed space in order to meet and do operate their sessions and meet in private. So this was before COVID, and of course, when COVID hit, we were unable to do that, but they went online. We have a Gates lab, and it's a private computer room that can give them access to computers and privacy. So all the things that we normally do, teaching people how to navigate the internet, how to use technology, and sometimes really just train people how to switch on a computer. That's what libraries normally do. So this was part and parcel of what we could collaborate upon. So we share, our staff will then share our online databases and help ladies, help them to navigate in getting employment, housing, food, clothing, etc. We offer them access to all by having them apply for their own library card. And sometimes when they come out of incarceration, they don't even. Sorry.
Time's up. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
So I'm sorry. So we'll hope that there is some time for Jody to share her insights later. But yeah, thank you. I know that given the interest of time, we have to move forward. Thank you.
I'm willing. Let me give up 2 minutes, and let's give Jody 2 minutes to share.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Kevin. Thank you both.
Jody, please go ahead. Yeah, 2 minutes, they say.
That's about right for me. So, good afternoon, everyone. I am a firm believer that this program has played a big part in my success today and the end of incarceration for me. Technology education program. During phase 1, the team assisted me formatting and editing my resume electronically. This was a crucial first step in gaining employment for myself. Shortly after distributing my resume, I obtained a position as an administrative assistant in a local property management company. Phase 3 was also helpful for my new job. I learned business website with those company. The KU Technology Education Program has now hired me as a digital navigator. This position gives me the opportunity to assist other participants in learning for change, hope, and innovation for women in my community who are reintegrating back into society after incarceration. As a digital navigator, I'm also able to provide feedback to the needs and interests. Starting out as a participant and now holding the position as a digital navigator has given me a purpose in life that is indescribable. I want to express my deepest gratitude to everybody who has made this program possible. Thank you so much. Again, I am honored to be a part of a program that is intentional about making a difference and changing lives for so many who desperately need it. Thank you for the invitation to speak today on behalf of myself, our program participants, and the participants we hope to join us in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing 2 more minutes for Jody. Thank you.
I think that's then over to me. My name is Tian Edwards. I'm from the Educational Gaming Environments Group, EDGE, at Turk, a not-for-profit STEM education company in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I'm here today with Manju Banerjee. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Tian. I'm Manju Banerjee. I'm Vice President of Educational Research and Innovation at Landmark College in Putney, Vermont. I oversee 2 divisions at the college. One is LCERT, which is Landmark College Institute for Research and Training, and the other is ETOP, Educational Technology Online Programs.
Great. Quickly share screens here. We are working together on a project that is designing a virtual reality game for and with learners who are neurodiverse, especially participants who are autistic, but also ones with ADHD and other neurodiversities. We have 2 deliverables. And this is actually really important that we're trying to make sure we're giving things equal weights. One is a VR, virtual reality, STEM learning mystery game, something that is going to go out into the world and be used and played and hopefully enjoyed and learned from by a broad audience, and research findings. So trying to enhance and add to the field. And one of the main steps in the piece we're going to talk about today is the co-design process. We're co-designing for and with students from Landmark, who are both a major part of our target audience and coming with various neurodiversities. We're focusing on sensory attention and social differences and really trying to embrace the idea of nothing about us without us. So really briefly, the co-design process has been bringing together a team, some members from EDGE. Currently, we have 4 EDGE team members and 5 interns from Landmark, working week after week through the course of a semester to be designing what this game is going to look like, paying its particular attention supposedly on how to be addressing sensory attention and social differences. But one of the major challenges and things that I've had to embrace is that you can't, if you're really doing true co-design, you have to let the participants take you where the whole group is going. And so we've spent as much time designing things that I, coming into this, would think have nothing to do with neurodiversity whatsoever. And I found this very, very exciting because it means we're designing something that we really wouldn't have designed if we weren't doing the co-design process. And it's really changed how I run meetings, how I listen, how I engage, not just when I'm working with the co-design team, but when I'm doing work across lots of areas, because it's a different mindset. And then in addition to the co-design process, we're conducting research, looking at differences, what are preferences so far, because we haven't wanted to put anybody into VR headsets. We've been doing things in 2D, but we're trying to be figuring out ways to be making decisions now that will help us design an experience that works for a broad array of participants, who include those who are neurodiverse, and help other people later who are coming along to be taking into account the needs and the strengths of these participants from the very beginning, as opposed to retrofitting things later on. Manju, would you like to jump in on the benefits on the other side?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tian. So we've had two groups of students, a little bit of a delay because of the pandemic. So the previous group, 4 students, and now 5 students. But for me, as the liaison working on this end, getting the students together, it has been amazing to see how this community of learners has developed and bonded. It's almost like a research club here on campus. And these are students who typically, and we've had students from computer science, from psychology, so it's all majors and disciplines. So first of all, it's debunked the myth that only students who are in business or science or STEM majors are interested in STEM. Secondly, I have really seen how the students' self-esteem, self-determination, and a sense of confidence has grown as they worked with researchers from Turk. They really not only talk about what they do, but have demonstrated many of the workplace skills, which is so important once they transition out of college. So participating in on time, doing your homework. These are, you may not know, at Landmark College, all our students have learning difference, whether it is dyslexia, ADHD, or autism. So every one of these students have a challenge, and they are marginalized in mainstream institutions where they don't get these opportunities. So this opportunity was one they were not only excited about, but they were able to demonstrate that they can meet the expectations, both in terms of the co-design project, as well as in terms of life skills. I'll just add one more comment that from my vantage point, it is so interesting to see that each cohort has its own personality. And as Tian was talking about, from her edge, she's kind of learned to work with the different personalities that make up a cohort, and then individual students within a cohort. So it has been a learning experience for me, for Turk, but definitely for the students, it's been a very positive experience. And I just want to say thank you for this opportunity and the opportunity to share with everyone.
Thank you, Manju.
Thank you. And I would just want to wrap up by saying the most exciting thing for me is what we're designing is different than what it would have been if we weren't doing the co-design process. It's taking longer. It's hard, but I think the final product is not only going to be different, it's going to be better. And that for me, that's the most exciting thing of this, and it makes all of the challenges and the whole process worthwhile.
Wow, thank you to everyone. I think we have 4 minutes, is that right, Kevin? Okay, we'll get it done in 3. I just wanted to to just take a couple minutes to reflect and kind of gather some thoughts from what we just heard. I don't think I have anything new to add, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet and just send you off with like, remember what they said about this. The idea of the iceberg, and that the relationships are an iceberg, and that there's like a project might be one part that you can see right at this moment, but there's all this other work that's gone into it. And I think that image has kind of morphed over the course of this conversation for me into a mountain range of icebergs below. And so there are different moments where it peaks up and you see like it's an active project, but it's constantly fed and growing, and there's always the underneath that's being contributed to and added to. It really, like the idea of reflecting on one's own identity informed lenses is such an important and strong notion that it's wonderful to be reminded over and over again that that's part of the work for all of us in ASL and research communities. And what else came up as that idea was stretching over time was how not only are you reflecting on your own identity informed lenses, but also on the reciprocity of what you're hearing, learning from, and who you're interacting with, and not just creating space for all of those different identities, but also like changing your own approaches and letting that reciprocity change you and your everyday interactions, from, like Tian was saying, how you run a meeting to what you're designing to how you're emailing or conversing with people. Another one was just intentionality, being intentional about these relationships, being intentional and creating communication channels that encourage and support that intentionality and keep it going